Today we want to talk about what could be related to the end time events as described in the Bible. The Bible says in the book of Revelation that one day in the near future or in the far future, depending on your outlook, there will be a one world government, and it will be ruled by somebody who has one currency. The Bible talks about having to get a mark in your hand. It's called the mark of the beast, and we'll put the Bible reference up on the screen there for you. Either a mark in your hand or in your forehead, and without that mark, you won't be able to buy or sell anything. Now, the Bible also has some pretty bad things to say about the people who get that mark of the beast, and we'll save that discussion for another time. But let's get right into it, because there's a lot of talk about one currency that's out there that's not supported by any particular country. It's called Bitcoin. And we wanted to talk about the possibility of Bitcoin coming into this one world government idea, and could it possibly be the one world currency that people are forced to use, or something like Bitcoin, as we head toward this one world government that Bible prophecy talks about. And how far off in the future are all of these events? And Peter, could you start us off by telling us a little bit about Bitcoin? What is Bitcoin? Where did it come from? How did it originate? And who's using it today?
Yeah, so you can actually read the original paper where the theory is laid out, where this guy, who we're not really sure who he is exactly, but he goes by the name Satoshi Nakamoto. He put out a paper in 2008 describing an internet-based currency, which is based on cryptology. And he launched it the next year, and people started buying it, started using it, and people were really excited at first about how you'd be able to use it like a currency. It's gained in popularity, although people aren't using it so much as a currency nowadays. It's largely used just as an investment vehicle. People are buying it and holding it and watching its value go up. They're trading in it. There's a lot of day trading going on with it. People are kind of liking it because governments and banks cannot manipulate it. It is decentralized, and it is turning out to be a interesting alternative for some people to established currencies.
Now, just talking about currency in general, what gives us the faith in the currency that we use, or the currency that you use in whatever part of the world you live in? Here we have the United States dollar, and everybody believes in it, everybody uses it, and that is because it is our legal tender. There is a law from the Congress that says that anybody who has a United States dollar can use it to buy or sell anything, and therefore the fact that the U.S. government stands behind the dollar gives people faith in the value of the dollar. The dollar is no longer backed up by silver or gold as it was. That standard is long past. I don't know what currency you're using in your part of the world, but it's also probably backed by the promise of the government of the country in which you live that that currency is worth a certain value, and everybody has the faith in that. So with Bitcoin, it's actually, there's no government that is helping you have faith in it. It's just the people that are using and exchanging and buying and selling the Bitcoin. And just the faith of the people alone who are involved in the Bitcoin is giving the Bitcoin that value. And if I'm not mistaken, the value of a Bitcoin at this moment is a little bit of one Bitcoin is worth more or less $36,000, maybe a little bit more. So is that right? Is it just the faith in the Bitcoin that is giving it the value by the people who are using it? Faith in the Bitcoin.
I think faith is normally what we use to talk about things that we can't see, like things that are bigger than us. Now, something like a currency, or especially Bitcoin, it is very much something that can be understood. People have, quote, faith in it because they know what it is, and it's something that they want to use. It's something that
But you can't see it, really. It's just numbers on a paper.
Yes,
right?
well, you can see those numbers.
Okay.
Everyone can understand exactly how it works. That's what attracts people to it. Everyone can know exactly how many there are, and how many there will be, and it's a kind of a fixed system from the beginning that a central bank can't come into and say, well, now we're going to increase the Bitcoin supply, or now some government is going to change their financial policy and screw around with the value of the currency.
So the value of the Bitcoin really is moved by the value that the people who are using it give it. Like if I have a Bitcoin and I'm able to sell my one Bitcoin for $50,000, then the value of Bitcoin goes up because somebody paid the $50,000. Is
Sure.
that correct?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so that's how the value of the Bitcoin goes up and down. David, do you have anything that you'd like to add in relation to the Bitcoin, the pros and cons of Bitcoin? If somebody offered you a Bitcoin, would you accept it?
Well,
Like as a gift?
oh, well, definitely I'd accept it as a gift. Bitcoin is
And why is that?
well, it's really quite interesting because by design there's only 21 million Bitcoins, and the value of the Bitcoin to me would be dependent on exterior forces. Like if your country is borrowing so much money, it's going into debt, and you want to put your currency into something that'll have value and not lose its value, then you'd put it into Bitcoin. And I believe that's what some of the richer people have been doing. There's quite a few people who have bought Bitcoin and refused to sell them. They're just holding on to them.
Like if I was a millionaire, for example, or a billionaire like Elon Musk or some of these guys who have lots and lots of money, why not give $100 million or $10 million and buy some Bitcoin and kind of play around with it?
Sure.
Well, actually, that's what Elon Musk did as far as his company goes. He used his company's finances to buy into Bitcoin and eventually sold quite a bit of it and made $101 million.
Peter, could the Bitcoin be a prototype of a one world currency that's coming as we talked about at the beginning of this discussion? There's going to be a one world government according to Bible prophecy, the mark of the beast, which you're going to have in your hand or forehead to be able to buy and sell. Could the Bitcoin be related to any of these prophecies? What would be the pros and cons of Bitcoin using?
Well, the people who like Bitcoin like it because it's something that authoritarian figures cannot do anything with, and that's the reason why a lot of governments or people in authority don't like it. So it's kind of something that libertarian type people or people in countries that have unstable currencies are very interested in it. And there's kind of an idea that maybe Bitcoin could become a world currency, but in a free kind of society. And all these people who have Bitcoin will become immensely rich as their currency becomes more and more accepted. Now, what you're talking about with it becoming the currency of an authoritarian global economy, it wouldn't be something like Bitcoin, because Bitcoin is decentralized and it is open source and it is very something that's very visible. People can understand it and see exactly how it works. But a lot of countries are looking at a way to issue digital currencies that their own governments control. So imagine that a situation where a government can completely program the currency and tinker with the code at any time, determining how that currency can be used and doing things like stimulus or tightening, just all from a very centralized programming. That is something that a lot of countries are really looking into, because, wow, imagine what you could do with your economy if you had a currency like that.
So did you hear that? Our first take is that the Bitcoin is not necessarily connected to the mark of the beast, but that we could be learning some lessons here because of the way it's being used on the open market. In other words, Peter is saying that it doesn't look like Bitcoin could be related to the mark of the beast because it's not being used by an authoritative government under government control, but it's more kind of an open market thing, whereas the mark of the beast is going to be under one government. David, do you think Bitcoin could be related to the mark of the beast? What do you have to say about that?
I think Bitcoin can be manipulated, and there are back doors to Bitcoin. They've lost a lot of Bitcoin that was stolen. And
Well, we have the whole mining aspect of Bitcoin,
yeah,
which we're
also,
not going to get into here.
no, of course
but
not.
Yes.
So I don't think it has anything to do with the mark of the beast. I believe the mark of the beast would be more like based on maybe the outline of the World Trade Organization, where people trade, but they go through the World Trade Organization, and whatever they want to trade, they will put it there, and whatever they don't want to trade, they will put it there. And so there's a certain amount of control there. What's happening now is there's a bit of a race toward what currency is going to be the medium of exchange. The dollar has been the medium of exchange for goods and throughout the world. But now China is trying to take that position as being the world currency, and they've borrowed heavily and they've invested heavily, and their economy is doing really well. But I think the mark of the beast has to do with taking over that position, so neither the dollar nor the renminbi will have that authority. Eventually, it'll be based on.
Eventually, it'll be its own currency that probably emerges from all the world currencies that exist today.
It'll have control over all the goods as far as the world is concerned.
Sure. We know what the worldly economics looks like today. We know what the economic situation is in the United States, the European market, the Asian markets. What would a godly system of economics look like, Peter? For example, when we enter into the kingdom of God, the next phase of our existence, what would godly economics look like?
Right, yeah, so we already have a pretty good idea of it, all the way back to the old Mosaic law in Leviticus. They had a built-in debt relief cycle every 50 years. You know, everyone has debts canceled, you have lands returned to the original owners, and in the parables of Jesus, he talks about this system where the landowner goes out, he hires all these people to work in his vineyard. Some people work 1 hour, some people work 12 hours. He pays them all the same. And he says, well, it's because I'm good and I want to do it. So we have these stories and these laws and these commandments, which are very different from anything that we see in what is considered acceptable financial theory in our times, in man's systems.
So it seems from what you're saying that the Bible, the book that we all are trying to follow, the Bible has a lot to say about giving and helping people,
yes.
helping people in need.
It's like a generosity-based system with a built-in God factor, where you're also depending on God himself to supply needs.
So the Bible, the message, the economic message that the Bible gives us is to give, and help the poor and needy, whereas the economic system in the world today is more like a take, charge as much interest as you can, and give as much credit as you can to help people to spend more money and get further in debt. A little bit different from a godly form of economics. Of course, then you have the whole subject of selfishness and people thinking that they need things that they do not need, and what that does to a person's economic status, especially if you're trying to buy things and you don't have the money for them, but you're given this little plastic card that you can use to buy things that you cannot afford.
I would direct any viewer to Isaiah 55 and see what that has to say about the exchange of goods in God's kingdom. It's quite a radical idea. And there's more passages like that, but that's a great example.
And in a nutshell, what does Isaiah chapter 55 tell us?
Come and get all these things without money. Come get these things for free. And then, of course, in all of those sayings, it focuses on the importance of spiritual things and how important spiritual things are. Like Jesus even said, don't work for food that perishes, but work for the things that endure to everlasting life. So there is just this radically different viewpoint on how we should see material goods, how we should exchange those goods, and where our focus should actually be.
So God's economic plan, Jesus said, so likewise whosoever he be of you that forsaketh not all that he hath, he cannot be my disciple. Get rid of your material goods. He said to the rich man who came to him and said, Jesus, I've kept all the commandments. What must I do? Go and sell all that you have, give it to the poor, and come and follow me. And then, of course, the economic plan in the book of Acts, which is the early church of the Christians, where it says in Acts chapter 2, verses 44 and 45, and all that believed were together and sold their possessions and goods and parted them to all men according as every man had need.
Yeah.
So God's economic plan, pretty different from the economic plan that we're taught in school today. So David, where does that bring us now if we go back to Bible prophecy, the Bitcoin, world economics? Is the future a bright one for us, or are we headed for dark days economically in the world today?
Oh, I believe that the New World Order does not want people to go without. So they're going to supply. There's the Agenda 21, for instance.
The New World Order wants everybody to have things.
Yes, they don't want any economy to collapse, but they just want to gain control over the economies of the world. And it's going to be a very benevolent New World Order, actually. And apparently the leader of this New World Order is going to be quite an admired person, in that he's able to stabilize things and bring things about in a certain way where it benefits every country, and every country that has contributed to it or given up their sovereignty or their economy will benefit from it.
Sounds kind of like the American president that ran on the platform. There are going to be 2 chickens on every table and 1 car in every garage. Was that Hoover just before the Great Depression? Well, what say you about world economics? What do you think about the Bitcoin or these currencies that are emerging outside of the currencies of the governments of the world today? If you have any comments on anything that we've said here, or you have a different outlook on the economic situation in the world today, we'd like to hear your comments, and we look forward to seeing you again at our next discussion around this table.